You're right. I absolutely don't deserve you. That's what I said. I said it in a calm, almost cheerful voice, right in the middle of our first and only couples therapy session. I looked my wife, Sarah, dead in the eye. Then I glanced at her two best friends, Jessica and Chloe, the vultures, as I'd started calling them in my head, who were sitting on the couch next to her like a pair of smirking gargoyles. The therapist, a woman who clearly thought she'd seen it all, blinked. I'm sorry, what was that? I leaned forward and slid a thick manila folder across the coffee table. It landed with a soft, satisfying thud. I said, they're right. Sarah's right. Her friends are right. I don't deserve her. And since I've finally come to accept that truth, I went ahead and filed these. Sarah's eyes widened. The vultures stopped smirking. The therapist slowly reached for the folder. Inside, neatly paper-clipped, were the divorce papers I had my lawyer draw up the day before. The silence in that room was so thick you could have cut it with a knife. Sarah just stared at me, her mouth hanging open, looking for all the world like a fish that had just been yanked out of the water. How did we get here? I mean, seriously, how does a decade of what I thought was a happy marriage end up in a therapist's office with a smug peanut gallery and a legal bombshell? Let me tell you, it all started about a year ago, when the vultures got their wings. Before the chaos, Sarah and I were that couple. You know the one. The couple people genuinely seemed to like. We'd been together since college, married for 10 years. We weren't perfect, but we were a team. I was grinding away at a tech startup, pulling insane hours, trying to build something that would secure our future. Sarah was a graphic designer, creative and funny, and she was my biggest cheerleader. We had our routines, our inside jokes, a life we built from scratch. Her best friends, Jessica and Chloe, were part of that life. Their husbands were my friends. We were a solid group of 6. We did game nights, weekend barbecues, and group vacations. It was good. Then came the great unraveling. First, Jessica's husband left her. It was messy, involved another woman, the whole 9 yards. 6 months later, Chloe's husband filed for divorce, claiming he just wasn't happy anymore. Suddenly, our solid group of 6 was a fractured mess of 4, plus 2 very angry, very bitter, and very single women. And that's when everything changed. Jessica and Chloe formed what I can only describe as a coven of misery. Their new favorite pastime was wine and wine night, where they'd get together, drink way too much cheap rose, and dissect every single failing of the male species, using their ex-husbands as the primary case studies. At first, I felt bad for them. I encouraged Sarah to be there for her friends. They need you right now, I told her. Man, was I an idiot. I thought she was throwing them a life preserver, but they were actually dragging her into the deep end with them. The little comments started subtly. Sarah would come home from a night with them and look at me differently. One night, I came home late after a brutal 14-hour day trying to close a funding round. I was exhausted but excited to tell her we were making progress. I walked in, and she was on the couch, phone glowing. She looked up at me, not with a smile, but with a weirdly suspicious squint. "You're late," she said. It wasn't a question. "I know, sorry. The meeting ran super long, but I think." Jessica said Mark used to have long meetings all the time. She cut me off. Turns out his meeting was named Tiffany. I just stood there, my briefcase in my hand, completely floored. "Are you seriously comparing me to Mark? You know what he did. That's not fair." She just shrugged. "I'm just saying. You're never home anymore." That was the first little crack in the foundation. I was working my ass off for us, for the house we wanted to buy, for the future we'd planned. But suddenly, my hard work was being reframed as neglect, my ambition as a character flaw. All because Jessica's scumbag ex-husband was also ambitious. It made no sense. But this was their new logic. It was like they'd created a universal curriculum on bad husbands, and they were determined to make Sarah see how I fit every single module. The real first explosion, the one that made me realize this wasn't just a phase, was our anniversary. Our 10th. A big one. I'd been planning it for months. A surprise trip to this little coastal town in Maine we'd always dreamed of visiting. I booked a charming B&B, made reservations at a fancy restaurant, the whole deal. I was so excited to finally get her away from everything, away from the vultures, so we could just be us again. I told her about it a week before, and she was ecstatic. She cried. She hugged me. She said it was the most romantic thing I'd ever done. For a few days, it felt like I had my old Sarah back. Then, the night before we were supposed to leave, she dropped the bomb. We were packing our bags. I was folding a sweater, and she was just standing by the closet, staring at a suitcase. "Hey, you okay?" I asked. She took a deep breath. "I can't go." I laughed. "What?" "Very funny. Did you forget how to pack?" "No. I'm serious. I can't go," she said, her voice flat. "Jessica is having a really hard time. It's the 1-year anniversary of her finding out about Mark and Tiffany. She's calling it her divorce anniversary, and she's having a party. She needs me." I stared at her, waiting for the punchline. There wasn't one. "A party?" "She's throwing a party for her divorce, and you're canceling our 10th anniversary trip for it." "It's not a party, it's a support gathering. You wouldn't get it. You have no idea what she's been through." My blood started to simmer. "Oh, I think I do. And I'm sorry she went through it. But this is our anniversary, Sarah. Our 10th. I spent thousands of dollars on this trip. Non-refundable dollars. So it's about the money now," she shot back, her voice rising. "God, you're so selfish. All you think about is work and money. My best friend is in pain, and all you care about is a stupid trip." The hypocrisy was breathtaking. I was the selfish one. For wanting to spend our anniversary with my own wife? I lost it. We had a massive fight, the worst one in our entire relationship. It ended with me sleeping on the couch and her going to Jessica's miserable pity party the next day. I spent our anniversary weekend alone, canceling reservations and feeling this cold, hollow pit in my stomach. That was the moment I knew we were in real trouble. The vultures weren't just her friends anymore. They were her new religion. After the anniversary disaster, things got worse. The vultures escalated their campaign. Their new target was our finances. You have to understand, Jessica and Chloe were both in rough shape financially. Mark had hidden assets, and Chloe's ex was fighting her on every penny of alimony. So, naturally, they projected their situations onto me. I had a separate business account for my startup. This was crucial. It held the seed money, the initial investments, and it was legally structured to be separate from our personal assets. Sarah knew this. We had discussed it at length with a lawyer when I founded the company. It was to protect us and our home if the business went under. But the vultures got in her ear. "A separate account? Oh, honey, that's a classic cheater's move." I could practically hear them whispering over their rows. "He's hiding money from you, getting ready to run." So, one evening, Sarah sits me down at the kitchen table with a stack of our personal bank statements. She's got this grim, determined look on her face. "I want to see your business account statements," she said, no preamble. "What? Why? You know that's all company money." "I have a right to know what's going on," she said, puffing her chest out. Jessica says financial transparency is the cornerstone of a healthy marriage. I couldn't believe it. Jessica's marriage ended because her husband was sleeping with his secretary, not because he had a business account. "This is ridiculous." "So you are hiding something," she pounced. "I knew it. My friends warned me." My patience was worn down to a single, frayed thread. But I tried. God, I tried. I pulled up the business account on my laptop. I walked her through the transactions: payroll for my 2 employees, rent for our tiny office space, payments to software vendors. I showed her everything. "See," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "It's all there. No Tiffany, no secret condos. Just business expenses." She stared at the screen, her brow furrowed. For a second, I thought I'd gotten through to her. Then she shook her head. "I don't know. It's just, Chloe says a man who really loves his wife wouldn't need secrets. He'd want everything to be shared." The feeling of hopelessness that washed over me was immense. It wasn't about the facts. The facts didn't matter. All that mattered was what Jessica says or Chloe says. I was no longer being measured against myself, but against the ghosts of their failed marriages. I was being tried and convicted for the crimes of other men. The final nail in the coffin, the one that completely shattered any hope I had left, came a few weeks later. My startup, the company I had poured my blood, sweat, and every waking hour into for 3 years, finally landed our first major round of venture capital funding. This was it. This was the moment that changed everything. We were no longer a shoestring operation. We were a real, viable company. It meant we could hire more people, expand, and, for me personally, it meant I could finally start paying myself a decent salary. It meant the 14-hour days would soon be over. It meant the future we'd talked about was finally within reach. I got the call from the investors while I was at the office. I was so ecstatic I was literally shaking. I left work early, went to the nicest liquor store in town, and bought a bottle of Dom Perignon, the real stuff. I couldn't wait to see Sarah's face. I pictured myself popping the cork, picking her up and spinning her around the living room, telling her that we'd made it. All the sacrifice had been worth it. I walked into our house, my heart pounding with joy. And there they were, the three of them, on our couch. Sarah, Jessica, and Chloe. The air in the room was heavy and sour. There were empty wine glasses on the coffee table. Before I could even open my mouth, before I could share the best news of my life, Sarah looked at me. Her eyes were cold, devoid of any of the warmth I had fallen in love with. "We need to talk," she said. Her voice was rehearsed, like she'd been practicing the line. Jessica and Chloe both sat up a little straighter, their faces a mixture of pity and morbid excitement. They looked like spectators at a Roman Colosseum, waiting for the lions to be released. "Great. I have something amazing to tell you," I started, holding up the champagne bottle with a huge grin. "No," Sarah said, cutting me off. "This is important. My friends and I have been talking, and we've all come to a conclusion. I don't think you deserve me." The grin fell off my face so fast it felt like a physical blow. The heavy champagne bottle suddenly felt like it was made of lead. She kept going, her voice gaining a cruel momentum. "You're never here. You're completely obsessed with that stupid little company of yours. You don't appreciate me, you don't support me, and frankly, you're not the man I married. A real husband puts his wife first. Chloe and Jessica, they see it. Everyone sees it but you." I looked at Jessica and Chloe. They were nodding slowly, their faces masks of solemn, fake concern. They were the ones who had planted these seeds, watered them with their own bitterness, and now they were watching their toxic garden bloom. And in that moment, something inside me just snapped. It wasn't loud. It was a quiet, clean break. The part of me that had been fighting, hoping, trying to get my old Sarah back, it just died. I looked at the woman on the couch, parroting the miserable gospel of her divorced friends, and I realized she was a stranger. My wife was gone. These three were all the same person now. I didn't say a word. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just looked at the three of them, turned around, and walked out the front door. I left the expensive champagne on the kitchen counter. I drove to a hotel and checked in. And the very next morning, I called the best divorce lawyer I could find. I knew Sarah would freak out when she was served papers out of the blue. It would be dramatic. So, my lawyer and I came up with a different plan. A more direct approach. I told Sarah that she was right, that I had been selfish, and that I would do anything to fix it, starting with couples counseling. She was thrilled. "And Jessica and Chloe have to come," I added. "They're so important to you, and I want them to be part of the healing process. I need to hear their perspective." "Oh, man." She ate it up with a spoon. The vultures were practically giddy. They saw it as their ultimate victory lap, a chance to sit in a room with a professional and get validation for every poisonous thing they'd ever said about me. They had no idea they were walking into an ambush. Which brings us back to that therapist's office. After I dropped the divorce papers on the table, the vultures started squawking immediately. See what he's like," Jessica shrieked, pointing a finger at me. "This is classic manipulation. He's trying to scare you, Sarah? He can't handle strong women telling the truth," Chloe added, nodding furiously. But Sarah was silent. She was just staring at the folder. The reality of the situation was starting to crash down on her. This wasn't a game. This wasn't just a wine and wine session. This was real life, and her marriage was ending. The therapist, to her credit, took control. "Let's all just take a breath," she said, holding up a hand. She looked at me. "This is obviously a big step. Can you tell me why you feel this is the only option?" "Certainly," I said, leaning back in my chair. "For the last hour, I've listened to these two women list my supposed crimes. I work too hard. I have a secret bank account for my business, which I've already shown Sarah is completely legitimate. I had friends over for poker one time. These are the high crimes and misdemeanors that have led them to the conclusion that I don't deserve my wife. So I asked for this session to get clarity. I wanted to hear it from Sarah herself. I turned to my wife. "So, Sarah, let's try this again. Forget what Jessica and Chloe have told you. In your own words, what have I, your husband of 10 years, done to you that is so terrible it makes you believe I don't deserve you?" The room went dead silent again. Sarah opened her mouth, then closed it. She looked at Jessica. She looked at Chloe. They were trying to mouth words at her, coach her from the sidelines. "The trip," Jessica whispered. "I apologized for being upset about the anniversary trip," I said calmly. "I shouldn't have raised my voice. But was I wrong to be disappointed that you chose a divorce anniversary party over our 10th anniversary?" Sarah flinched. She had no answer. Her eyes started to well up with tears. And in that moment, I saw it all. She had no reasons of her own. She had been so caught up in their tornado of negativity that she'd adopted their grievances as her own. She had let them tear our house down brick by brick, and she'd been handing them the sledgehammer. You can't name one thing, can you? I said, my voice softer now. Because there isn't one. I'm not Mark. I'm not Chloe's ex. I'm the man who has loved you for 15 years and has spent the last 3 killing himself to build a future for us. But you're right. I don't deserve this. And you don't deserve me. I stood up. My lawyer's number is on the papers. You have 30 days to respond. And with that, I walked out of the office, leaving the 3 of them sitting there in stunned, tearful silence. The aftermath was exactly as pathetic as you'd imagine. The second I was out of her life, Sarah's phone started blowing up my phone. Hundreds of texts, dozens of voicemails. It was a tidal wave of panic and regret. It was them. They got in my head. One text read, I didn't mean it. I love you. Please come home, said another. But I was done. It was like a switch had been flipped. I couldn't unhear what she'd said. I couldn't unsee the smug satisfaction on her friends' faces as they watched her tear me down. Trust, once it's been pulverized like that, doesn't just glue back together. The divorce went through. It was fairly clean, since we had a prenup. Sarah tried to fight for more, with Jessica and Chloe undoubtedly coaching her on what to demand, but the law was the law. And guess what? Once the divorce was final and the reality set in that Sarah's lifestyle, the one I had been entirely funding, was over, the vultures disappeared. Funny how that works. Without my income to fund their girls' nights, their weekend brunches, and their retail therapy sessions, Sarah wasn't much use to them anymore. They couldn't feed on her misery if she couldn't pay for the wine. The coven disbanded. The last I heard, Sarah had to sell her car and move into a small, 1-bedroom apartment across town. She's working 2 jobs to make ends meet. Her social media is a sad collection of inspirational quotes about starting over and finding yourself. And me? My company took off. The investment paid off big time. We're a huge success now. I sold a portion of my equity for more money than I ever dreamed of. I travel. I bought myself a nice house on a lake. And about a year ago, I met someone. Her name is Emily, and she's incredible. She's smart. She's independent. And when I told her about what happened with Sarah, she just shook her head and said, her loss. Sometimes, agreeing with the crazy things people say about you is the most powerful move you can make. They expect you to fight, to argue, to defend yourself. When you just look them in the eye and say, you're right, it takes all their power away. I let Sarah and her friends win the battle. But man, let me tell you, I definitely won the war.